is a coordinated activity happening across this nation. And so we are in a state of emergency. Black people are dying in a state of emergency. We cannot look at this as an isolated incident. The reason why buildings are burning are not just for our brother George Floyd. They're burning down because people here in Minnesota are saying to people in New York, to people in California, to people in Memphis, to people all across this nation, enough is enough. Yeah. And we are not responsible for the mental illness that has been inflicted upon our people by the American government, institutions, and those people who are in positions of power. I don't give a damn if they burn down Target. Because Target should be on the streets with us, calling for the justice that our people deserve. Talk about it, Tamika. Where was AutoZone at the time when Philando Castile was shot in a car, which is what they actually represent? Where were they? So if you are not coming to the people's defense, then don't challenge us when young people and other people who are frustrated and instigated by the people you pay. You are paying instigators to be among our people out there throwing rocks, breaking windows, and burning down buildings. And so young people are responding to that. They are enraged, and there's an easy way to stop it. Arrest the cops. Charge the cops. Charge all the cops. Not just some of them, not just here in Minneapolis. Charge them in every city across America where our people are being murdered. Charge them everywhere. That's the bottom line. Charge the cops. Do your job. Do what you say this country is supposed to be about, the land of the free for all. It has not been free for black people, and we are tired. Don't talk to us about looting. Y'all are the looters. America has looted black people. America looted the Native Americans when they first came here. So looting is what you do. We learned it from you. We learned violence from you. We learned violence from you. The violence was what we learned from you. So if you want us to do better, then damn it, you do better.
Aaron, why are you dressed like you're about to star in the next Spike Lee joint?
That's how I feel, bro. That's exactly how I feel.
As you got do the right thing vibes for sure, bro.
No, I dig it. I understand it. And I was going for a vibe.
Okay, I'm here for it. It works.
That's
right?
fair. That's fair.
So anyways, welcome everybody to episode 3 of High Chicago. You got Sean right here, the Spike Lee guy. You got Aaron. You got Mary Claire. And then you got my boy JV in the socks hat.
Yo.
How's everybody doing? You guys good?
Yeah, we're doing good. How you doing, bro?
Right.
Decent. Not great, but decent.
Okay.
I know originally we're going to talk about, what people watching during quarantine, classic TV shows, like we said in episode 2, but fuck that. There's too much going on right now that I want to discuss, and so is everybody else here, because it's real life shit that's happening now. And if we're going to be a show that talks about real shit, then that's what we got to do, right? So we're going to go ahead and just jump right in. You guys have heard names like Trayvon Martin, Eric Garner, Philando Castile, Ahmaud Arbery, Tamir Rice, and all their situations. And anything that they were involved in could easily happen to me, my little brother who's 24 now, Aaron, JV. It's a lot of fucked up shit that's going on right now, and I want to talk about that. Cool? Cool.
Sound good to me.
So what's going on right now is the whole George Floyd situation. It's so fucked up. And if you guys aren't familiar with what happened with George Floyd, let me fill you guys in now, right? So the cops were called on him because he allegedly had a counterfeit $20 bill that he was going to go pay at a convenience store. And so the cops got called on him. And when they arrived, they wound up handcuffing him. And a statement was made that he physically resisted, which there's zero physical evidence of that, by the way, right? Mm-hmm. He ultimately wound up pinned on the ground with Officer Derek Chauvin's knee shoved into his neck for about 8 minutes. You hear him say he can't breathe, and yet the officer does nothing. Okay? Right. So ultimately, he winds up pronounced dead that day, this is last Monday. And then that Tuesday, all the officers involved were fired. And then that Friday, fucking, he's finally arrested. So for me, all that was some bullshit. Why did it take so long? I'm angry. Why are we going through this again? Again, we've seen this countless times for years and years and decades and decades. And it's the same bullshit that keeps happening. So I kind of want to talk about how it makes everybody feel and how do we fix it, right? So JV, we'll kind of start with you, bro. Fucking talk to me, man. What are you hearing in the streets? You're the news reporter. You actually were at a protest in Iowa yesterday?
Davenport, Iowa, Illinois, Iowa borderline, So the protest here was mostly peaceful for the most part. I would like to say like 98, 99% of it was peaceful. There was one boy that got attacked after a group of kids that weren't a part of the protest threw some rocks into the courthouse window. You know, he tried to confront them about that, and he ended up being attacked. And then earlier today, I learned his friend was also attacked. His mom was attacked as well. So 3 people kind of walked away with injuries. The friends had some broken bones in the face. The young man, you guys may have saw it on Twitter, had a big gash in his head and all of that. Just unfortunate because, again, they were just out there doing the right thing. And as we're producing this right now, we're hearing in Chicago, they're calling for the National Guard. The mayor of Chicago, Lori Lightfoot, just said that out there not too far from where you guys live in the south suburbs, they're already closing Walmarts from Evergreen Park to Richmond Park, you know, thinking that people are going to come out there and try to loot. It's just crazy because we're watching these news stories every day and we're seeing what's going on. And it's just unfortunate because it's so many things happening at one time. You have people who are truly just protesting, saying, hey, this is how we feel. Then you have some people who are purposely coming to these protests to agitate the situation. And we saw many Minnesota officials saying that yesterday, saying, hey, we think that it could be white supremacists actually pretending to be protesters, breaking down things, and then, you know, spraying BLM on their Black Lives Matter. And then that's causing the, you know, police or National Guard to confront them or whatever the case may be. And so, then you also have some people who are looking at this situation like, hey, you know what? This is the purge in real life. We're about to go to Target, Walmart, what have you, just go all in and just be lawless and reckless. And then again, you do have those people who are just trying to say, hey, we're tired of being killed. They're frustrated. They're angry. And they're like, when we protest quietly, you know, by blocking the expressway, you all don't like that. When we say hands up, don't shoot, you guys don't like that. So we're just going to, maybe if we wreak havoc, maybe that will open you guys' eyes. And so it's just so crazy to see, you know, what's all going on. And so
we'll kind of touch more on the protests a little bit later.
Mm-hmm.
But like, I want to hear from you personally, bro. So you have a 9-year-old child, right?
Yeah.
A young African-American male who, in the eyes of many, in about 5 or 6 years, is going to be considered a grown-ass man.
Very
right?
true.
So from a father's perspective, like, how does all this shit make you feel, bro?
It scares you. It scares me. I'm not going to lie to you. It definitely scares me because it's like you, as you mentioned, you know, little Gregory is 9 years old, you know, and he's into just being a kid, you know, playing cartoon characters and that kind of a thing. But he is knowledgeable about what's going on. You ask him about the coronavirus, he understands that. You ask him why he can't go to Walmart now because it's shut down, he understands that. And so it makes you take a step back and say, okay, what can I do as a father to protect my child? Because when I was growing up, my dad taught me how to code switch. And I'll tell you guys that later on about our encounters with the police. And it's kind of like, I felt like that was kind of helpful, but at the same time, it wasn't. And so I want my son to be able to still, you know, embrace his blackness. His mom want him to have dreads and stuff like that. But at the same time, I don't want him to be a target. But he's going to be a target regardless. It doesn't matter whether he got a haircut and went to Harvard or if he got dreads and just chilling, working at the local store. You know what I'm saying? He's going to be looked at as a black man regardless. So as a father, you have to kind of weigh that and just try your best to teach your child how to have interactions with the police. And to some people, that sounds like a foreign concept. But, you know, I don't know about you, Aaron, maybe you could jump in. But for me, that was just second nature. It was just like learning how to use the bathroom and everything else. It was like, hey, when you get into it when you get pulled over, this is how you react.
And before you jump in, right? Let me apologize. I misspoke. I said in 5 to 6 years. Tamir Rice was 12.
Yeah, so a few years. We're talking about.
I was just about to ask, at what age do you consider a young black child, like a man or a woman? Like, you know, for you, you're speaking for your son.
Yeah.
You know, you said Gregory is 9. So are you seeing that the world's going to perceive him like that in 1 to 2 years, or what is that line for you? What does that look like?
I mean, to be honest, the world already perceive him as that right now. You know, Gregory is very tall, very lanky. You know what I'm saying? You know, if you guys saw him stand up, y'all would be like, is he 9? Is he 13? Like, I mean, he's really, you know, got some height to him. So it's one of those things where it's like, I may still see him as baby boy, and I still call him baby boy. And he always says to me, I'm not a baby, Dad. I'm almost 2 digits, talking about being 10, you know.
Right.
But it's one of those things where if he's outside playing with his little toy Fortnite gun or something, like you say, like Tamir Rice was in the park in Cleveland playing, you know, with a toy gun, who's to say what the police in Chicago or wherever he may be at that time, you know, is going to see. So it's one of those things where you just try to have that conversation with him. And then by me and his mom co-parenting, it makes it somewhat difficult because she's more radical, if you will, than I am. I'm more conservative. So it's kind of like trying to meet in the middle, because I don't want my son to grow up hating the police, but I want him to respect the police, but I do want him to understand what odds are stacked against him. And that's a very fine line to walk across.
That's facts, bro. And I commend you for the job that you're doing, because it's a tough situation either way. So Aaron, bro, I know you got some strong ass feelings about this, about what's going on, about how much bullshit it is. Go ahead.
So touching on JV's point, I don't have a child yet, but I know that time is coming, and I do fear for how I'm going to have that talk with my child as well. JV, I know you have a little more experience because your child's almost 10. You have a decade of experience talking through things like this, but I, as you guys know, am dating a white woman. And so we have those two different worlds that we're sort of living in, where for her, she never really had to deal with any sort of prejudice towards her race, really, because it is a white America, truly. But when it comes down to how I perceive the sort of racial inequalities, I know I'm going to come at it from a different perspective. We sort of have to talk together and see how that sort of conversation is going to go, right? I actually wanted to bring up the Chris Cuomo speech. He had a speech on, I want to say it was Saturday, on CNN, talking about the two Americas. I'm dealing with that. I have that juxtaposition here in my own household, where on one side you have Dylan Roof, a guy who went and aired out an entire church. And then on the other side, you have George Floyd, who forged a $20 bill, allegedly. What y'all say?
Allegedly.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Dylan Roof, peacefully cuffed, taken into a squad car, given food. George Floyd, knee on the back of his neck. You don't see what's the problem with that? That is a huge issue. And it's because we are seen as less than human. It feels like we are seen as less than human. I don't know how you guys feel about that, but for me, it terrifies the shit out of me. It makes me think every day, I could go out here. I have a dog I take out every morning. Maybe one day I go out here and one of the white people who lives around me, because I live in a majority white area, maybe they see me and they're like, oh, who's this guy? He doesn't belong here. We're going to call the cops on him immediately. And I could end up being another hashtag.
And that's frightening as fuck, right? When you think about it, bro. And that's what like frustrates me, is because these people aren't doing anything wrong to that extent to where they deserve to be killed, right?
No.
Or you got citizens taking the law into their own hands and like with little to no repercussions, and that's bullshit, right?
Like you just said, like, you don't want to be the next hashtag. Like, that is so deep, you know? Like, this is the world we live in. We find out the latest news and tragedies based off of hashtags and things that are trending, because people don't know how else to get the word across, you know? It's so sad.
And, you know, just to say real quick, I mean, that's what's so interesting about America, right? Because it's like, because of technology, because of cameras, because of social media, we're being able to see this documented in real time. But this is not something new. You talk to our parents and our parents' parents, they say, hey, this is just another day in America. And it's because social media is because all the technology there, and we're seeing it played out on every major TV network. It's like, oh my God, this is the America that we live in. And it's like, yeah, this has always been that case. Yeah.
And I want to bring up a quote that Will Smith had where it was like, racism isn't getting worse. It's just getting filmed.
Exactly.
That's the biggest fucking facts.
I forget who else said it. It's very similar to that. I can't remember who quoted it, but they were like, you know, it's just making it more apparent. It's always been here. It's just people are seeing it from a different point of view, from this new point of view.
Speaking of points of view, Mary Claire, so you have a different perspective than the three of us, right? As a white woman, right? That's one perspective, but also as somebody who dated a cop.
Yeah.
Right? So what's your thought process on all of this shit?
Honestly, anytime something like
JV,
this
what the fuck? You good, bro?
What'd I do?
You just took the biggest go from the biggest mug I've ever seen in my life.
Okay, my bad.
No, my bad. I'm sorry. Stay serious. Mary Claire, go ahead.
So honestly, it's sad that I have to say every time something like this happens, but unfortunately that's the world we live in. It keeps occurring. Nothing stops. But every time something like this happens, I'm just devastated and embarrassed. And it's really scary. I mean, last year I was dating someone who was not only a police officer, but he's Black. And, you know, I feared every single day that something could happen and I can't have control over it, you know? And that's sad. Whether it's him in the situation or other people, you just don't know how things are going to play out until after the fact. And, you know, even though I'm not with him anymore, my current boyfriend, he is Black, and I still have those fears. It's reoccurring all the time. You never know what's going to happen when you come in encounter with police or other people who are just ignorant to the fact that this stuff does exist in our world. While Aaron was talking earlier, I literally looked down at my phone and my mom just sent me the most heartfelt message. And, you know, shout out to my mom. She's the reason why I grew up the way I did. She sent me a message and she was like, you know, tell Ro to be careful out there. They're rioting in Chicago and I fear they're going to do it in Houston. My mom is literally telling me what to go say to my boyfriend. And I'm like, you know, this is how my mom raised me. Treat everyone the way you want to be treated. It doesn't matter if you're Black, white, purple, yellow. You got to speak from your heart and live from your heart. You can't just treat people another way because of this color of their skin, you know? So seeing all these racial injustices in the world is really hard for me. And growing up, my way of dealing with that was being an ally. And after I experienced a lot of racial injustice, it really shocked me because I'm like, wow, I have this color skin and it's like a whole nother perspective, whole nother world for me. But when you get to that point where you realize like you can do something about it in different ways, that's when I really embraced it. You know, when I was in college, I was part of the Black Student Association, Raza Unida. I tried to be as involved in multicultural clubs as possible because I wanted to be a voice. I wanted to speak up, you know, not just on behalf of Black folks, but also to tell white people like, hey, listen up, shitheads, like you're doing this all wrong. This is not what we're supposed to be doing. We were not put here to point fingers and to take action just because of the color of somebody's skin, you know?
Right.
And people look at me all the time and they assume like, oh, she's white. She either agrees with my opinion as a white person or, you know, sometimes people of color, they look at me and I don't know what they're thinking, but I hope at the end of the day that I can get my personality out and show them like, I'm not like that. I'm different. And that's what I live and breathe. You know?
Well, I personally appreciate that opinion, right? Because you're very open-minded. You were raised right, so you said shout out to your mom. Yes, I agree. Because a lot of people, unfortunately, weren't.
Yeah.
And it's shitty, and it's not fair, and it's sickening the way people's thought process works behind the way someone looks, as if we can help that. JV, your thoughts?
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of, you know, the saying that history always repeats itself if we're not careful. And if you guys remember back during the civil rights era, when they was, you know, spraying the people with water hoses and they had the dogs on them, all the national networks way back then in the 60s were broadcasting that all across the country. And people in the North, your Chicago's, your New York's, places like that, they had no idea that that's what it was like to be Black in the South. Because remember, there was no Twitter, there was no Facebook, there was no Instagram. Your news came from either your local news TV station or your local radio, really prominent during that time, and definitely your local newspaper was very prominent. So if you're in New York, you don't know what's going on in Birmingham, Alabama, and the same for Chicago. And it just really shows you how the world is watching us as a whole. When you look across the country, you look across the world, they're watching America basically burn. And if you look at some of those headlines, you go to BBC, you go to France 24, you go to Sky News, you go to any of those international networks, and they're all just saying America ablaze. That was what they put in the independent newspaper over in London. America is ablaze. And
the world is literally burning right now, and it seems uncontrollably at that, to the point where you got to have the National Guard come in this motherfucker and try to shut shit down.
That's the only option to stop this. Like, hello, we're all humans here. What is everyone doing about it? But no, we got to call the National Guard because that's the only option right now.
So that's facts. Well, kind of facts, kind of not.
It's kind of not facts. I mean, that's the big picture. Is that shouldn't be the last. That should not be the last resort. I mean, they're making it seem like this is the last resort, but this all just started, and people are freaking out. And I feel like this goes hand in hand with, why are we pulling the trigger? Like, there's other options on the table. You're just not trying.
Well, this is the thing. The truth to be told is like, you have to look at leadership. And I'm not one of those people that's talking about Democrat, Republican, that kind of a thing, because there's some history with that, but it's a little deeper than that. I think when you think about it, the only way this is going to stop, honestly, is more blood is going to have to be shed. It's kind of like the battle of America. It's going to get to a point where it may play out in Washington, D.C., and I pray that it doesn't, but you see how they're at the White House. You see how they're, doing that with the Secret Service, and they've been showing a lot of restraint. But if you get a big enough group to try to breach the White House, and we see on national TV Americans gunning down Americans, that is when the world is going to stop. That is when the world is going to say, okay, this is bloody insane. Right now, it's just, it's just, seeing it on TV every day. Oh, okay, they got Target, they got Walmart, this city, that city. But when you actually see, the military in the streets gunning down Americans, that's when the world is going to take pause. But
and this whole, you're good, my bad.
It seems like that's what Trump wants, though. If you've seen his tweets from the past couple of days, I don't know if you guys saw his National Guard tweet about Minnesota, but I mean, it's appalling, and I retweeted it, but I kind of want to read it to you guys, just in case anybody hasn't.
Go for it.
Yeah. He tweeted, "I can't stand back and watch this happen to a great American city, Minneapolis. A total lack of leadership. Either the very weak, radical left mayor Jacob Fry gets his act together and brings the city under control, or I will send in the National Guard and get the job done right." He followed up that with, "These thugs," in all caps, "are dishonoring the memory of George Floyd, and I won't let that happen. Just spoke to Governor Tim Walz and told him that the military is with him all the way. Any difficulty, and we will assume control, but when the looting starts, the shooting starts."
Yep. And he got that from a Southern sheriff, if I'm not mistaken, back in the 60s, that said that if the looting starts, the shooting starts, basically saying, you all come over here and start looting, we gonna start shooting.
He's trying to militarize this for no reason.
Yeah, but that's where it's going, right? I mean, look at it this way: how do you every major U.S. city is burning right now, from Chicago shutting down today to New York City. We're seeing what they're doing there. Los Angeles was just complete mayhem. I'll text y'all about that last night. We're seeing it all across the country. At what point do you say, all right, this is enough? Especially if you have people in there that's purposely doing this just to get that type of reaction. It's going to be that blood that's going to say, okay, this is when the world is going to stop.
But from what I'm seeing, and I don't know how much of this is actual facts, but it seems like majority of the people causing this are out-of-towners in these cities. A tweet from one of the correspondents from Minnesota said that 80% of the people who were arrested in Minneapolis were actually out-of-towners.
Yeah, and it kind of goes to that whole people come into these places purposely agitating the situation because you got protesters who are there on the front line saying, hey, hands up, don't shoot, get your knee off my neck, whatever the case may be. And then you have people that's purposely going in there, breaking into the Starbucks, breaking into the different places, stealing all the phones from the Apple stores, whatever. And then when the police start coming saying, okay, they're looting, or, oh, the Best Buy is on fire, and if you got the people with their hands up and they're saying, get out the street, then of course the protesters are already upset. We got rights. Pow, 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 pow. That is what's going to be what we're all going to watch. Just if this continues, we're going to all see.
Well, and I think it's the anticipation too, because when people are watching the news and there's like, we are now live, you know, like what are the viewers anticipating? Like they're anticipating the craziest, and that's just because we've seen it firsthand already in the media. So that's why people are glued to their TVs like, oh my God, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? What's going to happen? Because like you said, you know, they see the riots, they see them go peaceful. Sometimes they don't. So it's all about what is everyone else anticipating back home. And it's sad that that's what we're doing, but it's because we know something's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And it's terrifying, right? Just the thought of that it's extremely terrifying to me. And I understand protesting, right? That is the way to go about it. Rioting, even, okay, I get that. It's the looting part that I don't really understand on how that's gonna benefit anything, right? And if we're gonna try to fix this, man, you gotta fucking do it the right way. So in Flint, Michigan, right, the sheriff is walking with the protesters. Very peaceful. That is the right way to go about it, right? In Denver, Colorado, the protesters are laying down face first, and they are having their hands behind their back, chanting, I can't breathe, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's a very powerful message to get across. In Miami, the police officers are taking a knee with the protesters. So to me personally, that's a start, right?
Yeah.
Fucking join us in our message and in our issues and lead us versus fucking trying to run people down with their cars, pepper spraying motherfuckers, tear gassing motherfuckers. Like, don't do that. You're just inciting the riot to get worse.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? But like, I don't know. I don't have a fix. But to me, that's a good start.
On the flip side, though, one thing that really irritates me the most, and I've been experiencing the last couple of days on social media, is I'm so sick of everyone's solution every time some kind of racial injustice happens, especially when it comes to police brutality, is, oh, now we're gonna, you know, put these great officers on blast who are doing their thing and they're not violating their rights as an officer. I don't want to see no TikTok videos of a police officer. I want to see, what are you actually doing? What kind of Are you going up to your counterparts, your white police officer friends, and telling them, like, hey, man, like, what would you do if you were put in this situation? Like, do they actually role play that stuff? Like, I'm sorry, but putting you on blast in the media in a positive way does not change anything, and it hasn't done or solved anything. So that's my thing, is the media's role in this is, okay, that's great that you want to videotape this and that, but what is actually being done in that middle ground? You know what I'm saying? Where's the knowledge coming into play?
I agree. And, you know, Sean, you made a good point, just kind of saying like, well, you understand the protest, you understand the rioting kind of sort of, but you don't really understand the looting part of it. Right. So I think it's a few things that's happening with that. And I kind of touched on that a little earlier. I think you have a segment of the population that feels like our voices aren't heard unless we act out in a uncivilized way. That's a part of unrest, you know. So I think you have a portion of the segment of the population that feels that way.
Mm-hmm.
But then I think you have a bigger section of the population that's really going out there doing that, either A, for personal gain, or B, you have, and you definitely send it in these predominantly white cities, Des Moines, Minneapolis, places like that, Seattle, where you have majority of white people going out there saying, oh, we're doing this for Black Lives Matter. And it was a video I just saw before we started our show. These girls were spray painting BLM on the Starbucks out in California somewhere. And the girl was on the bullhorn crying like, oh my God, we didn't ask for that. Like, we're good. We're just protesting. Like, why are you doing that? And the girls were like, we're doing this for you. And we was like, they didn't need, we don't want that. We're good.
What are you exactly doing for you? I'm
exactly,
sorry,
right? Like, what are you talking about? And so The girl was just like, we don't want that, because when the media put this on the TV, they're going to show us. They're not going to show you guys. And they're like, we're doing this for your good. They don't like us. They don't like you. And so you have some people who I think are looking at this as an opportunity to truly cause a civil war. And you know, when you say that, people will be like, oh, okay, you're there. Josh, he's in the media. He's kind of blowing this up. But don't really think about it. If I'm white and I go out here and I spray paint Black Lives Matter on Target and I'm breaking into the Best Buy and I'm doing this, that, and the other, and I'm stealing my coffee table, of course you're going to have some opportunists that's going to steal some TVs at the same time, right? I mean, that's going to happen. But then when the military state come in, right? When you got your National Guards, or they even got the Army in the streets, I mean, you don't know what's going to happen, right? But you got the state police and the military coming out there and they start pepper spraying and shooting people down. Who's going to be there on that front line? It's going to be people that look like us. It's going to be allies that look like Mary Claire. And if you're a white supremacist, you don't care about somebody like Mary Claire because you looking down on her, even if her skin is white. Exactly.
That's your fault for standing there. And it's like, hello.
Exactly. So it's one of those things where, Sean, I think the protesters are going to have to kind of come together and ask themselves if this is happening, because they're there on the front lines, right? If this is what's going on. They may have to try to find another way to do their movement to prevent that from happening.
There has to be a better way.
Because emotions are so high, it's going to be hard to tell people who are protesting to not protest, because now they're feeling like, oh, well, you're just saying that before the riot, but they may want to look at the bigger picture, because if this goes, the wrong way, they're going to be the victims of that. And then it's like, but that wasn't even something that you all caused, but who's to say? Because all we see is y'all were protesting, and next thing we know, South Minneapolis is on fire.
Facts. And here's what I want to say to everybody that's listening, right? For me, I work in retail, right? I'm not famous. I don't have a lot of power, right? But there's got to be something that I can do to make things better. There has to be, even if it's something so small. What that is, I don't know. But everybody that's listening, just think about what you can do within your communities, within your household, at work, in general. What can you do, whatever race you are, I don't care, okay, to make this a better place and to make shit like this stop happening? Especially if you see something, you gotta say something, man. You have to say something, no matter what, right? That's the only way.
And I would say this, and to all my media colleagues that's there on the front lines, let's make sure we put that out there. If we are seeing people who are dressed up like protesters and the protesters are telling us, hey, they're not with us, boom, put that out there. And that's one thing that I did here. Okay, cool. It was some kids that came over there and said F12 and threw some rocks through the window. Honestly, it wasn't a big deal. They ran away. It was what it was. But when they attacked that other young black boy, and here you are talking about Black Lives Matter, but you attacking, you know what I'm saying? I made sure we put that on the news. We put that on the top story. And we're still running it today. We're going to run it again Monday, because you're not going to come here and disrupt a protest of people coming together. I mean, all different races and genders. Everybody was out there just saying, hey, you know what? That what we saw in Minneapolis, I mean, now that was crazy, right? That's what everybody was saying out there at the protest yesterday. But to have these kids then attack a kid that's doing the right thing, that's out here being a part of the good fight. No, absolutely not. And so I also encourage all the people that are in the media, as everybody calls it, you make sure that you call that BS out when you see it.
Yeah. Another solution, and this is something that we can't actually do, Sean, but we need these precincts to put the onus back on those cops. We finally had some semblance of hope when the George Floyd situation popped off, and the next day all of those officers were fired. But those officers that were standing around, why didn't anyone say to him, get that knee off?
Yep.
Get your knee off. Just today, I saw a video on Twitter of a Seattle guy, a protester in Seattle getting pinned down in a similar way. And the second cop in the situation, after he was already handcuffed, pulled the guy's knee off his neck. Why can't we all have that same sort of human decency in every single precinct? Why does it have to take this happening for everyone to see, for someone to actually look at that situation and say, okay, this might not be right. This is going to look bad on us. Hold everyone accountable.
Exactly.
Yep.
Aaron, going based off of what you just said, sorry, Sean, but Aaron, going based off what you just said, it's as simple as there's 5 people standing around you. All it takes is one person. That's the whole idea of a bystander effect, you know? That's the first thing you're taught when you take a basic psychology class when you're in school. And I know not everyone gets to go to school, but it's important to understand that it just takes one person making that difference. And who cares if you're the person? Who cares if you got to be vulnerable and put yourself out there? But especially in this situation, when those 5 people standing are also other police officers, that's when the training has failed them. They see their counterpart, who happens to be a white officer, with his knee on this man's neck for far too long. Shouldn't have even been that way. But you could have simply just, hey, bro, you got him. He's good. You know, he's probably riled up in the moment, but that's no excuse for him to continue. Am I blaming his counterparts? Yeah, because you could have had an effect on this whole situation, but you chose not to. And because of that, you fell for the whole failure of the bystander effect. And now we've got somebody who's dead, and that's just wrong.
That's very true.
That's factual as hell, unfortunately. So we're a little bit over time, so I'm gonna kind of wrap it up. But this isn't over, right? And if it's cool with you guys or everybody listening at home, right, I'd like to kind of continue this conversation next week. More conversations about our interactions with cops, right? More of our thoughts on what's going on in the world today, as far as racism is concerned. And I want you guys to join in on the conversation, right? So follow us on Twitter at HiChicago312. Follow us on Instagram, again, at HiChicago312. Leave comments in the YouTube section about what you think is going on. But, like, we want to hear from everybody that's listening, man, your thoughts, your opinions, your solutions, if you have anything, because it's such an important topic and it's such an important time that we need to come together as one to try to figure this shit out to the best of our abilities. Make sense?
Sure.
Yep.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense to me, bro.
So before we end the show, right, we'll do a rapid fire with everybody on any final thoughts. And Aaron, you're up first.
All right. So I'm gonna point out something else. I watched a lot of CNN the past couple of days. There was I guess Don Lemon came on later on in the night, and he asked the question, when did we lose this country, and when did we go from people who could tolerate living together to what was happening out there? And I have a strong opinion about that, and I think that date is significant. January 20th, 2017. Does everybody know what that day was? JV, I'm pretty sure you know what that day was.
It sounds so familiar.
No.
It's the inauguration of Donald Trump.
Oh, yeah.
I've never seen a president divide a country so much in my entire life. And I'm only 29, so
Yeah.
I've only had, 5 presidents in my entire lifetime. But none has divided the country in such a way that Donald Trump has. And I think that has a very inverse effect to the issues that we're seeing now.
You know, I like to add on
I appreciate that.
I think.
Go ahead, JV.
Oh, my bad. You know, what's so interesting is was it that Donald Trump divided the country, or was it the country was already so divided and all he did was play to their weaknesses, right? Think about it this way. In 2008, when Barack Obama was elected, you had a big swath of different cultures and races all coming together saying, hey, you know what, we want to change, right? But you had this segment of the population that was kind of like, I'm moving to Canada, right? You remember? You might remember that when we were in high school, people were talking about they was moving to Canada,
Get
right?
my passport and I'm leaving.
Right? And
So
he got reelected and all of that. And long story short, people were so frustrated and hated Barack Obama so much and hated the fact that, like, it seemed like for once in our country, races were coming together and people were trying to go upward. That when they elected a person like Donald Trump, who just gutted the Republican Party, I mean, he just didn't play fair at all. It just went from that. So I don't think it was so much that he divided the country. I think the country was already divided. And all we're seeing now is the effects of that.
MC, any quick final thoughts?
all I have to say is if you're white and you're watching this, you better be putting it out there what you're doing to make this world a better place, because believe it or not, you have the key to do it. So just go ahead, open that door, make that choice, be vulnerable. I know it's not easy the first time, but I know once you do it and get it over with, it gets better and it's more powerful every time. And that's all I can hope, is that by being white and putting it out there, that I'm helping others in my position make better choices and make the right choice.
That's real.
Appreciate that. So I'll kind of wrap it up by saying this. I know you guys aren't used to us being super serious the entire time. And we'll take feedback on that, right? Maybe this topic wasn't for you, or maybe this show is not what you expected it to be at all. But again, if we're going to talk about what's going on in the world today, unfortunately, sometimes we're going to have to be super serious for topics like this, right? And my final thought is, if you ever have to experience anything around racism or a family member have experienced that, around the police, anything like that at all, I'm fucking sorry that you had to deal with that shit at all. What's going on right now, it's fucked up. I pray that one day things will change. Um, but for right now, we just got to figure out again how to make it better. So to wrap up this episode of Hi Chicago, again, follow us on Twitter, Hi Chicago 312, Instagram, Hi Chicago 312. Leave any and all comments in the YouTube section, please. But we will revisit this conversation next week. Until next time, Chicago, peace out.